Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Military Monday. Today is April the 10th, 2023. My name is Bob Wheeler with ClearedJobs.Net. We're doing our monthly Military Monday broadcast here today. And today, what we're going to be talking about is resume reviews. We're going to talk about resumes. This is one of the things that people sometimes I don't want to say get hung up on, but it's one of the first things people always want to ask you is, do you have a resume? Or they lament the fact they don't even have a resume set up. And then once they have a resume, of course, they're always worried about the resume. So we're going to take a look at three different real resumes that we've kind of collected from some folks. We're going to kind of go over some things. We're going to talk about what can be good about them, what can maybe be improved about them. But one of the things I will also caveat everything with is that this is just a little bit of advice. When you start talking to people, you're going to get lots and lots and lots of advice. There is no one single way to get a job. Um, there's a lot of things that go into it. Um, but this is going to be something that can definitely help you out. So if you're here with us, if you're following along, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on YouTube or anything like that, feel free to drop us a comment. You can drop a comment in the section. Let us know, who you are, where you're at, or what service are you in? Are you getting out at any time in particular? That kind of a thing. And if you have questions and you drop a question in there, we will try to get to those if we can. Typically, these little military Mondays go about 30 minutes. So we try to keep it just to that little bit of a lunch and learn for those of us on the East Coast or maybe in the Central Time Zone. So with that being said, again, my name is Bob Wheeler. I was in the Navy for 20 years. My last 3 years, I was a recruiter. I recruited doctors, nurses, and dentists. And now for the last 8+ years, I've been here at ClearedJobs.Net, where I live in the space between job seekers and government contractors. So I'm kind of constantly talking to job seekers about how to do a better job of finding a job. At the same time, I'm talking to recruiters and hiring managers about better ways to find the talent they're looking for. So I'm learning to speak the language on both sides there. So today we're going to talk about military resume review. So like I said, I got three resumes. The first one that we're going to look at was a gentleman that I met just actually not long ago. I was at the Logistics Officers Conference in St. Louis. Just what I guess about a week, 2 weeks ago. So this one is a very senior individual. You can see it's a 3-page resume. It's got a lot of information. This gentleman's been doing logistics for a long time in the Air Force. Um, so we're going to take a look at some of the stuff that's on here. The top of the resume, I mean, first of all, stylistically, this resume is great. The only thing I would caution about stylistically on this resume is it was actually the font is pretty small because he was trying to get, lots and lots of 28+ years of experience onto 3 pages. I talk to a lot of people and I say, look, you want to make sure that you don't dilute your resume, you distill it down. If there was anything about this, we can maybe pull some stuff out of here that doesn't need to be there. And when you do that, you can make your font just a little bit bigger if you need to. But the first thing I want to focus on here is he calls himself a senior logistics executive. That's a fine title. There's nothing wrong with that. But I know that when we spoke about stuff, he was kind of concerned about what should he put up there. Um, so by putting senior logistics executive, that's a fine title. But if you're going to apply for a specific job, you might want to change what's up here to reflect the position that you're specifically applying for. But in general, this is good. I like the way he has stuff up there with his top secret clearance is right up there, easy to see. Uh, when we look at the summary, one of the things that I noticed about the summary, a lot of people do their summaries, and this I caution against making your thing sound too militaristic, and it happens to a lot of resumes all over the place, and we're going to address that a little bit. But when you put your summary section together, people have a tendency to just put stuff in there that they found from their fit reps. But if you're going to list things like astounding cost savings, in this case, measurable process improvements, anything that you list up inside this summary, you really, really want to make sure that you're going to tell that story in your work experience with some numbers or some stories or something that really gets into it, as opposed to just something that's kind of vague. So when you're looking at your summary, start thinking to yourself, what story can I actually tell? um, let's see, what else can we look at this one here. The core competencies part, I'm always been a fan of a core competency section. We're going to look at a resume later on in a few minutes that doesn't have this, and it kind of stands out that it doesn't have this. This is great because when recruiters are looking for keywords, this pops it right up inside there. Also, when someone's looking at your resume, whether it's a recruiter, whether it's a hiring manager, this first section, what we're looking at right here, this really does need to grab their attention. And you hear that a lot. You should grab their attention, but the way you grab their attention is you tell them that you can do what they're looking for. You're not going to grab their attention by being a dedicated senior leader or results oriented, blah, blah, blah type thing. And watch out for these big numbers and everywhere. What you're going to grab their attention with is saying that you do exactly what they need you to do. So, this core competencies area, think about what it is that what field that you're in, what kind of skills do people use, what kind of tools do they use, what kind of environments do they work in. um, and if you have a specific job and they list a specific tool, make sure you put that right up here in that core competencies, because you want to establish right up front a bridge that you do what it is they're looking for. What you see on the bad end of this, sometimes the core competencies where it looks all nice, but you sometimes people tend to roll into too much of the soft skills. Just the readiness, team development, strategic planning, those types of things. I'm a team player type stuff. All those things are great when you're in the military, and that those are really good skills to have. But the resume gets you the interview. It doesn't get you the job, it gets you the interview. Once you get to the interview, then you can tell the story about the team player, about the readiness, about the softer skills. They're going to come out in the interview. They don't need to be taking up the space inside your resume. Um, some things as we roll down. This is page 2. I noticed as I looked at this, this is another common thing, especially when someone who is a senior person. The first part of all of these bullets: directed a maintenance staff of 125, led major command directorate of 110. You really are, this gentleman here is really leading with leadership, no doubt about that. But in the private sector, whether it's government contract or other things, when you get into things like whether it's program management or whatever, leadership is not. It's not, I don't want to say it's not as important, but it's not the function of the job like it is in the military. In the military, you kind of get promoted, or we got promoted by what our team did, and we were kind of really taught to, like, don't really say what you did, say what the team did. And I led the team to doing these things. It also helps you get promoted in the military, of being like, did you lead bigger and bigger and bigger teams? So eventually you have these giant things of, I led this great number of people. When you get to the outside, it's not going to be just about leading 125 people or leading 110 people. You're leading through what they call direct reports, and so you're only going to have a few people that report directly to you, even though you may be affecting lots of people. So that's the one thing. Watch out for the whole leading with, because we want to tell a story of what you actually do. That's what those people are looking for someone to do. Um, Also in the military ease section a little bit, some things like, again, the lead career development. The career development part is not really something. It's a great thing you do in the military, but it's not something that's typically, unless it says something in the job description, it's very rare that it's going to say that. It's not going to be something that you need to have on your resume here. You want to distill it down to the stuff that they're looking to do. And also watch out for some of the stuff, Pathfinder, where again, it sounds kind of militaryese type thing. This was a big resume, so we have a few slides on this one. I also got into things like, uh, people talking about equipment valued at, and I know that when you go through your transition class, this is the kind of thing that they really push on you. Like, well, did you add up what does a Humvee cost? And if you had to manage 5 Humvees, how many millions of dollars is that in assets and things like that? It's not a bad thing, but don't overvalue that. Don't overvalue just the sheer number of how many dollars worth of equipment you manage. When it comes to the private sector, you always got to remember that it comes to things like making a profit. So when it comes to dollars, you want to talk about, profit and loss, not just how much you manage for things. And also, instead of talking about how much the value of things were, think about listing all the different things that went into that value. Was it, how many different types of vehicles were they? And instead of saying, I'm going to use vehicles, for example, instead of just saying Humvees or tanks, think about how does that translate to the outside world? Were they medium ton vehicles? Were they diesel vehicles? Were they, did they run off of this fuel? Did they run this kind of a motor? Those things are the kind of things where someone says, oh, I know what that person does. We do some of the same things. So just kind of watch out for the whole giant numbers of dollars. And like I said, I bring that up only because I know that in the transition class, that's one of the things that they kind of push, because they want you to start thinking about, budgets and stuff like that. How much money did you actually work around? As we look at this here, we've also got a few things. Again, militaries. This just really strikes me as coming right out of a fit rep, an officer evaluation report, or an awards thing. Flawlessly prepped. Something. You're visionary. Um, you know, e- Exceptional guidance. Flawlessly managed $3.5 million worth of budget. All of those words. You just know they came out of your fit rep. Pull that back a little bit. Don't make it sound quite so militaristic. We've some things that could be good in this resume too. Just to think about bringing those out. Looking farther down, I see that this resume happens to mention things like munitions, fuel, a couple of different times. Instead of just thinking about munitions and fuel, this is the kind of stuff that munitions. Maybe people on the outside aren't dealing with rockets and bombs and stuff like that, but it is hazardous material. It is explosives material. Those might be the kind of things to call hazmat as opposed to just saying munitions. But certainly the fuel also goes into that hazmat type stuff. So back to our little resume here. When we went back to the key skills area, maybe in this core competencies, we start bringing up things like hazardous material, storage, hazardous material transfer. Those things, especially if that's what their company does or deals with, is what's going to really stand out for everybody. So let me go jump on up to, all right, here we go. And we were right there to the next thing. Watch out when you're doing your details. This was a 3-page resume. This is on page 3 of the resume. It says page 2 of 3. So just watch out for your details. Um, Something else that's brought up at the bottom of this resume is, and I hear people talk about this all the time as far as what the awards goes. He's got recognized with Bronze Star Medal for outstanding leadership and mentorship. I'll bring up something that awards, and I'll talk about this in another resume here in a little bit too. Watch out for the awards piece. If you're going to mention an award, make sure you mention why you got it, what it was for, not just the fact that it's an award. Um, we all know as military veterans, like I know what a Navy Commendation Medal is. I know what an Air Force Commendation Medal is. I know the difference between that and a National Defense Medal. You certainly don't need to just go down listing all of your awards to make yourself look like a super big war hero. Um, again, when you start listing those awards, if you don't tell the story about what it means to the employer, you're just you're not building that bridge. You're making a gap. They don't understand what those awards mean. So if you're going to mention something, mention it in relationship to the actual skills that you did that affect the job that you're applying for. So by saying recognized with a Bronze Star for supervised daily operation of 52 maintainers and 7, this is close to being fitting that bill because it at least explains what the award was for. But again, it's kind of leaning into the supervision part. So um, this was a very big resume, 3 pages. He tried to get 28 years on here, and you notice that he says additional Air Force experience from 1994 to 2012 upon request. This is not a bad way to do it. I tell people you really only need to go back about 10 years, with the caveat of, if this gentleman was applying for something and the job description specifically said, I need 12 years or 15 years of experience, well then you definitely need to go back a little bit further. And when you distill some of this down, you'll have more room. When you drop down some of those things in here that don't really pertain to the job, you'll have enough room. But you definitely, if it says you need X number of years experience, you want to make sure your resume lays it all the way out so they can count up those years of experience. There's hiring managers out there, there's contracts that are out there. They're not even going to interview you if they can't show it on the resume to get it past the recruiter to the hiring manager. So if it specifically says a certain number of years experience, then you want to get into that. This gentleman lists his education at the bottom. That's exactly the way I would do it too. I always tell people that if you have the experience, you lead with the experience. If you don't have the experience, you lead with the education. So if you're a brand new college graduate, if you're a if you're doing a transition from one career to another, maybe you want to lead with the education. But for most folks, they're going to want to see what you've been doing and can you do the job. And then this is just checking the box as far as your education goes. Um, and this person did a great job of listing the formal education, which is important. And then also, what's great was he only listed the stuff in here that's actually logistics oriented. That's what he does. I mean, I'm sure that this person sat through tons and tons and tons of Air Force mandatory classes about things that don't relate to this. He could have listed, 5 more pages of stuff. This is not the time to go through your smart transcript and just list every single class you ever took in the military. Just list the ones that are pertinent to what you're doing. All right, resume number 2. This is a much shorter resume. This resume was also kind of a logisticsy kind of thing. It's a facilities manager person. One of the first things I noticed is, again, on your summary piece, results-oriented Air Force veteran. This is those little phrases, they just take up space. I did a quick search in ClearedJobs.Net. There were 470 resumes in there that started with results-oriented. This just kind of feels like it's very military. It's that fit reppy kind of a thing. You don't need to have that stuff. It's going to just take up space. Um, in this case, he's got the education right up front, right up the top there, as opposed to other things. But what I do like about this is the expected graduation date of May 2023. If you don't have something, but you're expected to get it, go ahead and put it on there with the expected date. Now, this resume is still great. Expected graduation date, May of 2023. If for some reason, you don't get, this person doesn't get their Bachelor of Science in Construction Management, next month, because for one reason or another, you're going to want to drop this off. But if when you put it together, if it's coming up within the next year, or even in the next 2 years, sometimes you can put it on there. If it's going to be like a bachelor's degree, I would say you could list it on there just to tell the story. If you've got other things like certifications that are pending because you're going to have to take a certification exam, if it's going to be within the next year, put it on there. Project management professional, expected completion date, whatever date. Um, one of the things that I look at this though is the last job that's listed on here ended in 2018. So I'm guessing that this resume is, because I don't know this person, as much. But this would, if I looked at this as a blank resume, I would just be assuming that, well, maybe you're done with working in the Air Force and now you're in college. So that's why this gap is. This is the kind of gap you might want to explain. You definitely want your resume, the last date on there, to go all the way up as close to possible as current. Don't make that resume person guess what's going on for the last 4 years, 5 years of experience there. So you want to fill something in there, even if it is that you're still in college. Instead of just having the expected graduation date, you could say, attended college from this date to that date, or to present, expected graduation date at such and such a time. All right. So they've got some things in here though that can be pretty good. I mean, this is a very good resume in the sense that it is distilled down. There's not that much fluff in here. There's a little bit, but not a lot, and it really focuses just on logistics and facilities management. But I would say that when you get into things like perform 39 inspections, again, valued at $239 million on 12 separate locations. Um, Talk about what kind of inspections were they? What kind of places were you inspecting? Were they safety inspections? Were they for hazmat? Were they for food service? What were they for? Explain that. And if there's a 4 or 5 different versions of it, list all those pieces out, because every time someone sees that and it's something that they do, it's telling the story. The story isn't just how many that you did. It's not just how much it was valued at. It's what kind of things were you doing. So think about listing out those types of things. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that military veterans tend to forget, is just breaking down all the different types of things that they do or use. We kind of want to lump it all into like this big thing, because we assume when we write a fit rep that everybody knows what kind of facility inspections are going on. But once you get to the outside, people don't know. They don't know. So you got to tell them. This is a poorer example of how to use the awards, just listing Air Force Commendation Medal. And by the way, this person listed Air Force Commendation Medal at the end of every one of his or her duty stations. So it's obviously an end of tour award, which makes it a lot harder to explain why you got these things. But again, people aren't going to hire you because you got an Air Force Commendation Medal. This is not like the promotion system where you get X number of points for this type of a medal or this type of an award. Um, this just kind of makes it look like, wow, you got this big, this big thing. You're much better off just telling the story. Distill it down. Don't dilute it with extra stuff. This resume here, as we kind of moved on towards the end, I don't think you really need a community service and activities piece. That was towards the bottom there. That's the kind of thing that just kind of gets a little bit too extra stuff. But you can see how you've got the Air Force Com medals after every one of those things. every one of the duty stations. All right, the last resume here that we've got going on, resume number 3. This one is not logistics oriented. Um, this one is really interesting because it's somebody who is making a career switch. So this person is got some medical background, but if you see what their list, besides being success driven, which is kind of like results oriented, um, with more than 2 years experience as an IT help desk specialist. So this is a person that wants to do information technology, which is why they led with areas of expertise. Um, this is this is really great stuff right here. I don't think you have to do it the way that first one did with all the bullet points, because these are very long Windows Vista, all this LAN WAN stuff. It might not look as good if you did it with the bullets. So this is fine doing it this way, but I love the fact that they list these areas of expertise right up front, right up top. And it can be easier to do if you're an IT person, because you've got specific specific networks, specific languages, specific tools that you use, that a lot of times they're acronyms. So DNSS or LAN WAN, it's an easy way to get all that stuff in there. But listing it right up there at the front is great. This person also lists their education and training right up front, which is good, because when we go to the next part of his resume, professional experiences, U.S. Navy medical support. This person is a hospital corpsman. It looks like, that's doing stuff. And this is why you have that great list. If this would have been listed up front, they would have said, well, why is this person applying for an IT help desk job? Well, first of all, right up here, you've already got them hooked on this. Since I need to look at your resume a little bit closer, because you've listed all of these things. When you get to here, you've got this piece. I would think about maybe trimming this down a little bit more, not as many bullet points, because you want people to jump right into this, help desk job that the person did from June to December. Um, even though it was in a different place, but jump right into this thing and make sure good job here of explaining what you were doing. Setting up user email accounts. That's what help desk folks do. Active Directory user management. Had a few other years, because remember at the beginning it said two or more years experience doing help desk stuff. Well, we've got this going all the way back to September 2019. So this is really great in the way this person told that story of doing something, even though it's not what they're doing now. Again, I'm going to start from the very beginning of this one, because I think it's a lot of people have this kind of a question of, what do I do if I'm currently in the military doing one job, but I want to do something completely different? So, kudos to this person, for getting some of this great training. I don't know if these jobs that amped and stuff like that, I don't know if this person, maybe they're a reservist and that's why they were doing hospital corpsman stuff, working on the side, doing other things. Maybe they were moonlighting, maybe they were doing some other stuff. But this is the kind of thing that is really important, and this is a good way for the resume to capture all of those things. So we talked about 3 different resumes here. It's we've done a good job, I think, of covering some of these resumes. Um, we've got the big ones, the long ones that can be tough when you're a senior person with 25 years experience. You've got all that stuff, you know, um, that you're trying to get onto the resume. If you're doing this transition, it's a different piece. But one of the things that you got to remember, resumes, like I said at the beginning, they don't get you the job, they get you the interview. So you do want to take these resumes, you want to distill them down as much as you can to make sure they're matching the job or the field that you're applying for, so that it's telling the story and it's um, connecting with what the people that you're trying to communicate with, they know that you do what they're looking for. Hey, um, as we get ready to close this down, I will say that we've got some job fairs coming up here at ClearedJobs.net. I've got one an in-person event in Tysons Corner, Virginia on April the 13th, which is this Thursday. If you happen to be there, I'll be there too. Happy to talk to you. Swing by and say hello. I'll take a look at your resume myself if you want. Give you some tips and just talk to you about your transition process. So if you happen to be there live, I'll be there live too. So catch up with us. If you if you have a polygraph clearance, I will not be at this event, but we, ClearedJobs.net, have a poly-only job fair coming up near Fort Meade on May the 4th. So that's if you've got a CI poly or a full scope poly. And if you're saying, hey, Bob, I'm not anywhere near the Northern Virginia or Maryland area, May 18th, there's a virtual job fair we got going on for all clearance levels. So this covers people all over the country. You can catch up all of these things, get more information by just going to ClearedJobs.net. You can see all the job fair stuff. But that is really about it. We did some resumes. If you ever want to chat with anybody, hit us up on LinkedIn. Find us. You can find me, Bob Wheeler, on LinkedIn. But we're always here for you. We're a veteran-owned company. We're trying our best to help veterans become better job seekers. So I hope that you had a great day. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we will talk to you soon. Bye bye, everybody.